Welcome back to the MMA Fight Realm. It is your boy Chris, and I'm back with another picks and predictions video, this time for UFC Atlantic City. Erin Blanchfield taking on Manon Fiorot in the main event. Now we got an interesting card here. We are outside of the apex, so that tends to deliver some finishes. Hopefully these fighters deliver. I'm going to be looking at the props this week for some finishes on a couple of these fights. And if you guys want to stay tuned in on anything UFC or this channel, guys, follow the Instagram at MMA Fight Realm. I got fight announcements, live odds. I got my picks, any pick flips. I got my bets there. Stay tuned in at MMA Fight Realm. Like the video, subscribe. Let me know what you think of the picks, and let me know your picks in the comments. Let's get to it, guys. First fight on the card, we got Caolan Loughran taking on Angel Pacheco. Now, I do think the lines for this fight are off, man. Caolan, I don't rate his fight against Taylor Lapilus too good, and he's 0-1 in the UFC against Taylor Lapilus. Angel Pacheco, stock not too high already because he earned a contract off a Contender Series loss. So, but he showed grit. He showed grit, and he went to a 3-round war with Danny Silva. And Danny Silva, we've seen now, we can say he's definitely UFC caliber. We just saw him get a decision win against Josh Culibao, and he's a pretty big featherweight. You know, he missed weight and won that fight against Josh Culibao. Went to decision against Angel Pacheco. Angel Pacheco is now moving down to bantamweight for this fight. It's very interesting. If it's healthy for him, I actually really like that for Pacheco. And that's why I do think that the lines should be a bit closer. You know, Pacheco going 3 rounds with a guy you can now say is up a weight class. And Danny Silva is a lot more dangerous in the striking than Caolan is. Caolan, one-dimensional, in my opinion. You know, when the fights get tough, he resorts to the grappling. And if he doesn't get the takedowns, he looks very sloppy. And Taylor looked fine at the end of that fight. He didn't look like he got hurt at all in the striking. And I know Caolan has a couple knockouts in the regional scene, but it's going to be hard for that to transfer over into the UFC if he doesn't apply a bit more technique. And Pacheco, if there's one thing we know, he could take a punch. So I do think out of the two, Pacheco's going to have the striking advantage. And after a war like that with Danny Silva, he definitely has improved. So I got to go Angel Pacheco here. I think this is overall is a dog or pass fight. And Angel Pacheco fights like a dog, and he is the dog in this one. I'm going to go Angel Pacheco by decision. He's going to have to defend takedowns. He's going to have to defend takedowns. If this fight goes to the ground and Caolan's just working top control, it could be a long night. But I'm going to go Angel Pacheco by decision here in this fight. Next one, we got Andre Petroski taking on Jacob Malkoun. Now, matchmaking wise, this is pretty good. I think these two are going to meet each other very well in their strengths. But for us fans, this might be a bit of a snooze fest. You know, Malkoun and Petroski, they are known as two wrestlers and grapplers. Petroski more of the BJJ preferred guy, and Malkoun no submission wins. So, but he's never been submitted. So, you know, this is a very tough fight for the both of these guys. Malkoun definitely prefers position over submission. He's a wrestler. Striking, there's a lot to be desired there. But you could tell in his last fight, he's been looking to get more ground and pound into his wrestling. And he was having his way. He was having his way against Cody Brundage. And that ground and pound, you know, you can tell he's still learning it, because it led to a disqualification loss against Cody Brundage, where I believe he elbowed him to the back of the head. And Cody Brundage, I do think he found a way out. Cody Brundage found a way out in that fight. He was losing that fight for the entire part of it, and I think he was getting tired. Brundage always gets tired after every first round, and you could just tell he was already losing that first round. So maybe he was looking for a way out. But I do think Malkoun has improved in terms of implying more ground and pound to his wrestling, but there's no denying that he's a position over submission type of guy. And that could favor him in this fight, because he has to be the heavy wrestler against Petroski. If he does get the takedown, Petroski's going to be hard to deal with off his back. He's a good submission artist himself, and Petroski can also mix it up with the striking. You know, it's sloppy. It's very sloppy, but if there's anyone that could get a knockout finish here, it's Andre Petroski, because his striking is wild, and if he lands something that Malkoun just doesn't see, we could potentially see a knockout finish here by Petroski. And Malkoun has been finished in the past. You know, Phil Hawes, it only took 18 seconds, but Phil Hawes is a way better striker than Andre Petroski ever was. You know, let's be honest, guys. So I think it's going to come down to cardio here. I have seen Petroski gas out in the past, and Malkoun, his cardio has never been questioned. So I'm going to go Malkoun by decision here. If he's aware enough, which he has been in the past, he should choose position over submission, rack up that control time the same way he's been getting it done in the past. And we could possibly see a snooze fest of just wrestling here. But Malkoun by decision is the pick. Next fight, we got Melissa Gatto versus Victoria Dudakova. Gatto is the favorite on the bookies, but a lot of people are picking Dudakova on Tapology, and it might be because of recency bias. I think Gatto is well-rounded. She definitely prefers to get a takedown and look for submissions or top control in her fights, and she'll even chase submissions off her back. You know, she's a serious threat off her back when she gets taken down. Because of that, though, she gives up the takedown fairly easily. So I do think, I don't like that for making picks, because, you know, sometimes if you do have the fight IQ, you can just, if you do have the fight IQ to not fall for any submissions, being on your back never looks good. Being on your back never looks good to the judges. So Dudakova, you know, good grappler herself, if she's just on top in this fight, not getting submitted, that looks good to the judges. So, you know, that could be a concern for me. And, you know, but Melissa's going to close fights with Tracy Cortez and Ariane Lipski. She's no slouch, and in her striking, it's improved every single fight, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a bit more improvement in this one. Dudakova, not bad herself though. She's earned a contract by decision on Contender Series, and it wasn't the best performance, but you could tell she was injured. And then in her first fight in the UFC, she wins off a freak injury against Estela Nunez, where she shot a takedown and forced Estela to, you can say that Victoria caused the injury because she shot for that takedown and forced Estela to defend the way she did. Put her arm down first, and all the body weight fell on that arm. Elbow popped out of place for Estela Nunez, and it just looked crazy. And then she goes freak first round finish for Dudakova. You can't really say that fight was much, but then she goes in there and gets a unanimous decision win against Jinyu Frey, very experienced fighter. Also was about 38-year-old Jinyu Frey, so who we can honestly say is an atomweight. She fought at atomweight a lot in her past, and it was clear that Dudakova had a size advantage in that fight, but she was still struggling. She was struggling to maintain the top control up until Jinyu Frey, you know, the cardio gave out. But Melissa Gatto is going to be there for 15 minutes, and she's even a threat off her back. I think in terms of BJJ, I got to give Melissa Gatto the advantage here. And if she starts getting takedowns of her own, that could be a serious problem for Dudakova. I'm going to go with experience here. I'm going to go with Melissa Gatto. I do think that she has definitely improved in every single fight we've seen her in. And Dudakova, this is a tough fight to be taken on in just your third, but we can say second fight in the UFC, because that first one was just a freak injury. So yeah, Melissa Gatto is the pick by decision in that fight. Next one, we got Ibo Aslan taking on Anton Turkalj. Ibo is making his debut, but this is actually a rematch. This is a rematch because these two, you know, they met in the regional scene where if you guys watched the fight, Ebo was dominating, all right? Ebo was dominating for the most part. He was getting takedowns whenever he wanted them. He was landing powerful shots on the feet. He had a very strong leg kick that has still transitioned over to present, where, he's still landing strong leg kicks even in his Contender Series fight. We saw that. So the thing that happened in that fight was Ebo gassed out. And Anton was able to take advantage of that and submit Ebo Aslan. I do think that, after that, Ebo must have learned that you got to be ready for 15 minutes. Because apart from that, he was dominating that fight. And I do think that Anton, he got very lucky. Okay? He got very lucky. And I've never really been high on Anton's skill set. He is taking on opponents that we can say he shouldn't even be in there with, because, Vitor Petrino was arguably the one guy that he had a good chance with, but Vitor Petrino was popping him with shots after shots and just taking him down, and Vitor Petrino was having his way in that fight. And then he took on Tyson Pedro on short notice, got knocked out in the first round. It was clear he didn't belong in there with Tyson Pedro. And then he took on Jailton Almeida on short notice, finished in the first round. It was clear he didn't belong in there with a guy like Jailton Almeida, guys. So I don't rate Anton Turkalj very highly. I do think Ebo can bounce back. This is the only loss on his record in his MMA career, and there's no secret that the UFC definitely wants him to rewrite this and get Anton out of the UFC. Whereas Anton, this is his last chance for sure. This is his last chance to get a win here in the UFC. I'm going to go Ebo Aslan. I think he has definitely improved from that last fight that he did have with Anton, which was a couple years back. Since then, he's had a couple first round finishes. No fighter has been able to bring Ebo Aslan into a second round other than Anton Turkalj, which might be a bit of a concern. But as I said, if there's one thing he learned from that fight, it's that you got to be ready for 15 minutes. And I do like that he's been training at Extreme Couture for these past couple weeks to finish out his training camp. So he's training with guys like Sean Strickland, Chris Curtis, and the rest of them. Good coaches. Good fighters to be learning from. Ebo Aslan, and I think he gets it done by finish. He's going to bounce back and rewrite that one loss in his career. Give me Ebo Aslan to get a win in his debut. Next fight, we got Connor Matthews taking on Denis Buzukja. This is going to be a good fight. Denis is 0-2 in the UFC so far, and he's in need of a win. And Connor Matthews making his debut. Matthews, he had 2 fights on Contender Series. One fight where he took on Francis Marshall, and at the time he was only 5-0, all first round finishes, and he got humbled up. All right, he got humbled up. The fight, he couldn't get the takedown. It didn't go his way, and that's usually how he was winning the majority of his fights in the regional scene. He was just being the way stronger opponent and just being the matador. All right, and Francis Marshall was able to defend some takedowns, get the fight into the second round, and bring Connor Matthews into fresh waters, and that definitely showed. So Connor Matthews, he didn't get finished. That fight went to decision, and you can definitely tell that he improved from that fight, because he went back to the regional scene, gets a first round finish, and then he comes back on Contender Series and is able to go 15 minutes with a very, very tough opponent. I believe it was a Brazilian 6'1" Brazilian prospect, and at featherweight, this is 6'1" we're talking about at 145. This guy had 10 wins. 7 out of his 10 wins were by knockout. I think he took on a very, very serious prospect. He was at a reach disadvantage in that fight, and he was able to clip him. He was able to get takedowns. Connor Matthews showed a lot of improvement in his second Contender Series fight. And Denis Buzukja, I'm not too high on him, but I do think that it's because of the level of opponents that we haven't really seen the best version out of Denis. Fighting guys like Jamall, Emmers, and Sean Woodson, that's tough, man. That's tough. Those guys already have a decent amount of UFC experience prior to fighting Denis Buzukja. And, he got finished in that first round by Jamall Emmers and then just got outclassed in that other fight against Sean Woodson. Wasn't able to win a round. But then if you look at the regional scene, he's taking on guys like 7-7, 6-4, 9-5, 7-5. The level of competition for Denis is just like really good or extremely bad. And I think now he's going to be met in the middle somewhere here, taking on Conor Matthews. But Conor Matthews is extremely dangerous, man. Conor Matthews, now that he's shown that he can go 15 minutes, I really do like his style for this fight. I think he's going to be able to mix in the takedowns, and that's going to be a huge problem for Denis. He has been tough to get taken down in the past, but Conor Matthews is going to work, and he's got forward pressure. He's always in your face. I think he's going to be a serious problem for Denis, and I could see Conor Matthews getting a finish here, but Denis, like I said, he is fighting for his contract. I got to respect Denis's skill set a little bit more in this fight, and we've seen these past couple fighters fighting for a contract go crazy. We just saw that last week, Jarno Aarons, and we could see Denis's best performance here, but I gotta go Conor Matthews by decision. I do think that he's gonna be in Denis's face at all times. Denis is going to fatigue, and Conor Matthews is going to work his game plan even better when Denis is tired, which is the takedowns. And he's a great striker apart from working the takedowns. So Conor Matthews is the pick here by finish or by decision. Next fight, we got Julio Arce taking on Herbert Burns. Long layoffs for the both of these guys, but Julio Arce has without a doubt had the stronger resume. He's had success in both bantamweight and featherweight, but this one's going to be at featherweight. There's no denying he can make bantamweight, but he's 34 years old. I think the cut is only getting a little bit tougher for him. But even at featherweight, he's had success. We're talking about a guy who's got wins over Dan Ige. Okay, so he's got great boxing, amazing takedown defense. He's never been submitted. He's only been finished by Song Yadong, and we know Song Yadong and his ability on the feet is no question. All right, he's got great durability. We're talking about Julio Arce here, and the cardio has never been a question. He might be underrated by the MMA space, but Vegas is giving him a -500 against Herbert Burns, and Herbert Burns, although he hasn't been looking good, he can submit anyone at featherweight. I do think he can submit anyone. He is a serious problem in the BJJ, but he's coming back. He's coming back after a stoppage in his last fight where the cardio wasn't there. The one-dimensional game plan showed, and he just wasn't able to have his way. The grappling, the forced grappling isn't always going to work, and being one-dimensional in the UFC is going to cost you. He's a submission threat, but that's his only way to win, and that's very tough to pick. Herbert Burns, he's going to have a height and reach advantage as well in this fight, but even when he does, he gets touched up real bad in majority of his fights because he's looking to get close and force grappling. So I wouldn't be surprised if Julio Arce catches him with some slick. He does have very crisp boxing, and we're talking about a guy with 95% takedown defense. So I wouldn't be surprised if this fight, plays out on the feet and Julio starts having his way and gets a finish here. But I got to go Julio by decision. I think he's just going to have the better moments in this fight. There will be some grappling exchanges, but he's going to do his best work to get out of that. And I don't think he's going to get submitted by Herbert Burns. We're talking about a guy who's never been submitted. Unless Herbert Burns catches him in something dangerous, I do think he can put him in some bad positions. But Julio Arce, never been submitted, 95% takedown defense. We got to go with the stats here. Julio Arce by decision is the pick. Next fight, we got Virna Jandiroba taking on Loopy Godinez. Loopy is now on a 4-fight winning streak, and she's getting her chance at the top 5. She's getting her chance at the top 5 in this weight class. Virna, there's no denying that she's top 5 right now. Her grappling, apart from it being extremely, boring, it's very boring. She won a fight against Angela Hill with only 14 significant strikes, but so much control time, and it just didn't matter. Angela Hill was not able to find a way up in that fight when she did get taken down. And Virna Jandiroba has that lay and pray style. It can work out for her, and it has worked out for her. She's top. She's now 5th in this weight in the rankings in this weight class, and it's for a reason. She's got good wins over Marina Rodriguez and Angela Hill, and Loopy. She has failed to execute the game plan before. We saw that against Luana Carolina, but she's got good boxing. She's an even better wrestler. Her move to the Lobo gym, training with girls like Alexa Grasso and guys like Diego Lopez, I think that has definitely improved her game. She's got a lot more confidence on the feet in terms of boxing. And I think she has the striking advantage. She should look to keep this fight on the feet. She's got an 86% takedown defense, and her striking is a lot more crisp than Virna's. We've seen her rely a bit more in her striking. Against Tabitha Ricci, she only attempted 1 takedown. So, Loopy might want to show some boxing skills in this fight, and she does. She could coast her way to a decision win if this fight plays out standing. But I do think Virna is going to force some grappling. It's just a matter of how Loopy is going to deal with it. With respect to Virna's skill, I got to go Loopy by decision here. I think Virna is extremely tough. She's never been finished, and I wouldn't be surprised if she makes it really close. But I think Loopy is going to be slightly better than Virna everywhere in this fight, and slightly a step ahead than Virna in this fight. So Loopy by decision is the pick here. Next fight, we got Jamall Emmers taking on Nate Landwehr. Jamall stepping in on short notice for Pat Sabatini. And, he did miss weight his last time out, so we got to be mindful of that heading into this one. He's a huge featherweight, and he's only getting up there in age. So, more often than not, he's got a height and reach advantage in his fights, and he's going to have one in this fight. Emmers is well-rounded. He knows when to get a takedown. He doesn't quit. You saw that against Pat Sabatini. He was willing to let his knee go, all right? His knee popped, and he didn't tap until it was already at the worst situation it could possibly be for him. So we're talking about a guy who has no quit, and you need that mentality for this fight game. Against Jack Jenkins, I think he really got damned by the judges. I thought he won that fight 30-27. The lines, if you saw the lines heading into the scorecards, he was a favorite. And, the judges gave it to Jack by split, but I didn't see how you can give Jack a round in that fight, I'm honestly speaking here. And then even in his debut, he took on Giga Chikadze. Tough opponent to fight in your debut. And I thought he had won the fight. I thought he won rounds 1 and 3. Round 2 was the round you could probably give for Giga, in my opinion. But watching the fight, I thought he won the fight. And, they gave it to Giga by split decision. But Giga was even talking on the mic after, saying, giving credit to Jamall Emmers and saying, he thought that Jamall Emmers had a great performance, but it's what the judges say. So tonight is his night. So you could tell that Giga was not confident that he won that fight. And Jamall Emmers, I think he's only improved, despite those losses he's had or split decision losses, he's definitely improved in his game, and he's very well-rounded. Nate Landwehr is no slouch, though. 35 years old. He's up there in age, but, he's a brawler. He's a brawler, and he's been applying more technique to his fights every time he returns. I think that fight against Dan Ige, we saw that, he was able to go to decision with Dan Ige, which is proving to be tough. To go to decision against Dan Ige now, who has been finishing guys like Feely and the rest of them, that's tough to do. And Nate Landwehr, I think he's been known for being that guy who welcomed the war, but now He's been applying more technique and trying to get hit less. And, you know, he got knocked down twice against Dan Ige. And the second time was bad. I really believe he was saved by the bell. But, he just, like what I said, he has that grit mentality. He doesn't give up on himself. When he's at a height and reach disadvantage, it usually doesn't work to his favor either. You know, we saw that against Julian Erosa. He was caught attempting a very telegraphed takedown, and Erosa landed a flying knee. And then we saw Herbert Burns finish him while attempting a takedown. You know, Nate is well-rounded. He's got great power, but he's at a strength disadvantage in this fight. And in my opinion, mixing the takedowns is going to be a lot tougher than it has been in the past for him. I think this is a good opportunity for Emmers to work a streak here and earn himself another win. And Nate, as I said, he's 35. I really think he's plateaued in terms of skill set. So anyway, all respect to Nate and his skill set. And I do think he's tough to deal with. Emmers by decision is going to be the pick here. If he had a full camp, I do think Emmers can finish Nate Landwehr, even on short notice. But I would say he can get it done by decision here because because Nate is tough. Nate is tough, and Emmers by decision is more likely because it's on short notice. So yeah, Jamall Emmers is the pick here by short notice, guys. Next fight, we got Chidi and Njokuani taking on Rhys Mckee. Rhys is 0-3 in the UFC, and I don't like his style. I'm not a fan of his style because he's, you know, when he's at a height and reach advantage in majority of his fights, because he's a welterweight and he's pretty damn tall welterweight too, he's getting clipped up. He doesn't pop the jab as much. He doesn't use his reach to his advantage. And if there's one thing he's shown, it's durability. That's for sure. Rhys Mckee can take a punch, guys. He can take a punch, and you know, that's cool and all, but now he's taking on Chidi and Njokuani, and Chidi has had moments at middleweight where, you know, he's getting first round finishes over Marc-Andre Barriot. He's finishing guys like Dusko Todorovic, and you know, if he's not finishing guys, he's gassing out. That's the problem with Chidi. You know, you've seen him gas out in the middle of round 2, which is extremely concerning. You know, this guy's only got about 7 minutes of fight in him, and then you can just see the quitting start to settle in. But moving down to welterweight, this might, you know, we might see an improvement in the cardio here in this fight, and I hope we do, because I do think he is the better fighter overall, and you know, he's got a lot of kickboxing experience. This fight should play out on the feet if he avoids the takedowns coming from Rhys Mckee. And I don't think, you know, I think Rhys Mckee is going to look to try to be there for the war and deal with the small battles, whereas Chidi and Njokuani is going to look in there trying to finish Rhys Mckee off the very first round. You know, Rhys Mckee, I don't see him as much of a threat, you know, and he's going to try to, I think he's just going to try to outlast the first few rounds, the first round for sure. He's going to try to outlast, because Chidi and Njokuani is going to be dangerous that first round. That's when he's most dangerous. So can Rhys Mckee make it past that round? I'm not too sure, and I'm not feeling confident. I'm going to go Chidi and Njokuani by finish here. I do think he can catch Rhys Mckee in the early rounds. 7 minutes is all he's going to need to finish a guy like Rhys Mckee. I'm not high on Rhys Mckee, and he can win this fight. He can win this fight, but even if he does, we can't rate it so much, because Chidi, like I just said, he's only got 7 minutes of fight in him. So low level fight overall, in my opinion. My money is staying away. Chidi and Njokuani by finish is the pick. Next fight, we got Bill Algeo taking on Kyle Nelson. Now, I just want to say Bill Algeo is finishing guys like Herbert Burns and going to decision with Joe Anderson Brito. Kyle Nelson is going to decision with Blake Wilder and Fernando Padilla. All right, this is two different level of opponents on paper, and Bill Algeo is a lot better on paper. All right, Kyle Nelson has improved. I think this is a matter of, can Kyle Nelson now beat guys like Bill Algeo. You know, has he reached that second gear in his career? We don't know that because we're going to have to see that this Saturday. Algeo is tall for this weight class. He uses his height and reach very well. Shoots a lot of front kicks to keep his opponents at distance. He will meet the pace of his opponents and then try to outwork them in the process. And if the version of Bill Algeo that fought Joannis and Brito, or even his last one against Hernandez, that version beats Kyle Nelson 10 times out of 10. 10 times out of 10 in my opinion. And Kyle Nelson, you know, he's a striker. He's going to look to close the distance against Bill Algeo with big shots. He's got good calf kicks. Some are very wild but readable. And the calf kicks are going to be hard to find in this one because Algeo is a southpaw. So calf kick might not be there. He has a high guard that gave Fernando Padilla some serious problems in his last fight. And in the past, he's had some cardio issues because he's forced the grappling and it ended up draining him in the later rounds. But he's been willing to strike more lately with guys like Blake Bilder and Fernando Padilla, you know. And it's going to be harder to do that against Bill Algeo, who I just think is a lot more of a threat than the two I just mentioned in Blake Bilder and Fernando Padilla. So I don't think Kyle Nelson has reached that second gear, and I don't think he is able to beat guys like Bill Algeo. He's going to have to convince me that this Saturday. I'm going to go Bill Algeo by finish here. I think that, you know, we all are talking about a guy who also has improved his game and also is looking to show levels. So Bill Algeo should get the job done here this weekend. He's got the height and reach advantage, and he uses it very well in the past. Should use it again this weekend. I'm going to go Bill Algeo by finish. All right. Next fight, we got Nursulton Ruziboev taking on Sedriques Dumas. I am high on Ruziboev this week, guys. 30 years old, and he's already got 43 MMA fights, man. This is an insane amount of experience for a guy who's only 30 years old. And in his debut, it definitely showed, all right? He outclassed Bruno Ferreira, caught the leg kick, and just blasted him. Knocked him out in the first round. And Ruziboev, you know, he's more known for his submissions. He's got 20 submission wins, but he's proven to get it done with the hands. He's got 11 finishes by knockout. Ruziboev has 11 finishes by knockout, and Sedriques Dumas only has 10 fights in his pro career. All right, so the level, we're talking about a really big difference in experience here. And he's got good composure. With all that experience in the cage, he picks his shots very well, and he's a great grappler to back that up. Ruziboev is a dangerous prospect. I see him touching I see him being near the top 15 this year for sure. And now he's matched up with Dumas. Dumas is athletic. He's got some decent striking, but I think he's levels behind in every realm of fighting when it comes to this matchup. Against Josh Friend, he got taken down very easily. And, you know, he was able to find his way up on the first one, but after the second one, he got submitted. You know, and Dumas, you know, he looked a little fatigued. I just think, you know, he's levels behind in this fight. In that fight against Cody Brundage, we saw some improvement in the grappling for sure. He was able to, you know, transition out of some bad positions, but Brundage took it on a week's notice, and we know that Cody Brundage gasses out after every first round, even on a full camp. So 1 week notice, Cody Brundage getting a win off of Cody Brundage on 1 week's notice doesn't show me much. This is one of the easier fights to pick on the card for me. All right, Ruziboev by submission, and I cannot wait for the prop line to come out so that I can bet that or even parlay that. I think Ruziboev is extremely talented. It's going to take someone with a lot more skill than Dumas to stop his 9-fight, not just winning streak, but finish streak. All right, Ruziboev is extremely talented, and I think he should get another finish this weekend. Next fight, we got Bruno Silva taking on Chris Weidman. Weidman's retirement fight. I think this is his last one. Honestly, guys, what is there to break down here? I mean, anyone who saw Weidman out there in his last one, you can just tell. that this is a guy who is a shell of himself now. 39, almost 40. He's a few months away from 40. It's way past that time to call it quits. But, you know, when he snapped his leg against Uriah Hall, he felt like he didn't make, you know, the proper steps to make a proper comeback. And he still feels, he holds that near and dear to his heart because he's still trying to get a win here in the UFC. And you know, his last time out against Brad Tavares just did not look good, man. He didn't take damage well, and he got injured very easily in that fight to the same leg that has been getting surgeries after surgeries after surgeries. We're just talking about a guy who's a shell of himself. And Bruno Silva, yeah, you know, he has lost 2 wrestlers in the past, you know, especially, you know, in his last one to Sharapun Magomedov. But Sharapun is 29 years old, man. 29 years old, and he was definitely, he's 11-0. He's on the rise. This is Weidman's last fight, you know, like Bruno Silva. The path to victory is very clear. You know, you got to attack those legs, and, you know, it sucks. It sucks to do that to the guy. But the path to victory is very clear. Once you attack those legs, Weidman's not going to be able to stand on them. It's going to be a lot harder for Weidman to get those takedowns. And I think Weidman's just looking to lay and pray in this fight if he does get the win. I don't think he can do that to Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva is going to be trying everything to get up. And I got to go Bruno Silva by finish here. I think, like I said, the path to victory is very clear. And if he decides to take it, we could see him get it done even in the first round. So Bruno Silva here is the pick. Next fight, we got the co-main event, Vicente Luque taking on Joaquin Buckley. Now, this is a tough fight. This is a tough fight. I think the best version of Vicente Luque destroys Buckley 9 times out of 10, in my opinion. But we don't know if we're going to get that. We don't know if we're going to get the best version of Luque. Luque is extremely well-rounded. He's got 8 knockouts and 5 submissions out of his 15 wins in the UFC. He's only been finished once, and that was against Geoff Neal, who is a knockout artist himself, you know. And I think in his last one against RDA, he showed his fight IQ. You know, he used RDA's game plan against him, but he was able to do that against a guy who, let's be honest, RDA is a true lightweight, former lightweight champion, never really should have been at welterweight. And we saw that, you know, in his last one against Gamrot, he had a lot closer of a chance against a lightweight than he will against welterweights at the top level like Vicente Luque. So Buckley, you know, being a former middleweight, I'd imagine getting any takedowns on Buckley are going to be really tough for Luque. And Buckley is taking this on short notice. So, but he's a guy who's always training, you know, he's always training. And the move down to 170 has definitely paid off. He looks a lot faster. He's improved in his cardio. But this is a guy who came into the UFC fairly early into his MMA career. So this improvement that we're seeing out of him, I don't think it's anything that wasn't bound to happen. You know, this is improvement that we should see out of guys that want to stay in the UFC. And Buckley is doing that, you know. He's got 5 knockouts out of his 7 wins in the UFC. He's yet to finish anyone with a serious name. And in his last one against Alex Morono, I thought that was an opponent that he could have really showed us some true levels to his game. But he was only able to land 38% of his significant strikes against Alex Moreno and won the fight by decision. But I'm not impressed by that. You know, Morono is for sure a veteran and tough to finish. But if you can't finish Morono, I don't see you finishing Vicente Luque, man. It's going to be tough. Buckley is also a southpaw. That was a big problem for Luque against Geoff Neal. But I rate Geoff Neal striking a lot higher, and the stats show it as well. I see Luque picking his shots, making it frustrating for Buckley, and eventually leading to Buckley overextending himself and getting caught. I think Luque can get this one done, and I'm gonna say Luque gets this one done by finish. Buckley's gonna take a lot of chances trying to finish a guy like Vicente Luque. We saw that, you know, not taking chances costed him against Alex Morono, and you know, he did win by decision, but it just wasn't as impressive. And if he's saying that he can finish Vicente Luque, I do think he's going to have to take a lot more chances than he did. Vicente Luque, a lot more of a threat than Alex Morono is. I'm not trying to do MMA math here. Experience is going to play a big role. I think the level of competition that Vicente Luque has faced, he should be more than well prepared for a guy like Joaquin Buckley. And it's just a matter of, like I said, the best version of Vicente Luque walks through Joaquin Buckley. So it's a matter of what version of Vicente Luque we're going to get. Vicente Luque is the pick, and I think he's going to get it done by finish here. Next fight, main event, we got Erin Blanchfield taking on Manon Fiorot. This was supposed to be 3 rounds, and I had a strong lean when it was 3 rounds, but now it's a main event. It's 5 rounds, and I think those 2 rounds are a serious game changer. You know, Erin is an extremely talented grappler. I'm not the biggest fan of her style, but it's been effective, all right? It's been effective. She's looking to get a hold of her opponents and take them down, eventually tiring them out and submitting them. And the fighters that do not have the will, they eventually do get submitted by her. But her grappling and her top control isn't the best. It's not the best. Her goal is to drown her opponents with her skills, and for the most part, it's been very successful. But, you know, like I said, she three submission wins and 3 decision wins in the UFC, undefeated in the UFC. There's no denying that she's a great prospect. She's more than a prospect. She's proven in the UFC, all right? She's proven to be UFC caliber, proven to be top 5, and proven to be now in a title eliminator. But she's going to have to show some more improvement in her striking, because there's a lot to be desired, all right? And a lot of fighters, you know, I do think there's a lot of fighters in her weight class who have a lot better striking than her. Even the champ, Alexa Grasso, for sure, has better striking than her. And that's where she's lacking in that department. If Manon Fiorot can keep this fight on the feet, it won't even be close, all right? And that's just my honest opinion. But Manon, you know, like I said, she's the better striker, hands down. She's got a 91% takedown defense. But she's yet to really face anyone whose objective is to only grapple. And that's what Erin Blanchfield is going to do in this fight. Her cardio is a little bit questionable, Manon's. And in some of her third rounds, she's looked a bit fatigued. And that's a huge concern for me. You know, that's why I don't think she's faced anyone who's going to bring this forward pressure that Blanchfield has. And for that, I got to go Blanchfield by decision. You know, at first, I had a lean for Manon Fiorot when it was 3 rounds, because I thought that, you know, I do rate Manon's striking very highly. And I do think that now, from what we've been seeing out of the judges, you got to rate damage higher than control. And Manon, her best chance is in those early rounds to work damage on Erin Blanchfield and force the fight to stay on the feet and hopefully land enough shots to the body that will, you know, make Erin not want to chase as many takedowns, and we got an interesting fight here. But if Erin gets that takedown, it's going to be a long night for Manon Fiorot. I think it's very clear here, striker versus grappler, and those 2 extra rounds to get for a grappler like Erin Blanchfield, who we've seen no quit. I gotta go Erin Blanchfield by decision. I think those 2 extra rounds, she's gonna win them with that grappling and control time. She's going to get a takedown in this fight. And Manon Fiorot, you know, if we do see a finish in this fight, it's Manon Fiorot. But Manon Fiorot, this is an extremely tough fight to pick, you know. But Manon Fiorot is 34 years old, and she got taken down by Jennifer Maia. Erin Blanchfield, a lot younger, 25 years old, and she's gonna be in there with a full gas tank. I gotta go Erin Blanchfield by decision here. That's the pick. And there you guys have it. Those are the picks and predictions for UFC Atlantic City. Hope you guys like it, man. Let me know your picks and predictions in the comments. And best bets and post weigh-ins picks will be coming out for this card. Yeah, I'm out of here. Like, subscribe. I'm out. Peace.